Hello everybody, I hope everyone's having a good day. I wanted to talk about a little bit of news here on this Wednesday in regards to the Bombers. A couple of things I wanted to talk about. One is the draft, the second is gather round. I'm going to start off with gather round. So the gather round fixture has been released, and for the third time in 4 years we're playing Melbourne. And I don't like this, I think this is a poor decision. Look, there's nothing wrong with playing Melbourne in gather round in isolation, but do it once. Why do you have to have the same teams, especially when it's two Melbourne teams, playing every single year for the third time now in 4 years? There's a bit of same about this, and I'd really like to see this fixture being played in Melbourne. It's not so much that it's, Essendon, Melbourne, it should be played in Melbourne. Obviously, gather round, you're going to be playing in Adelaide. We accept that, but mix it up. Like, why does it have to be Melbourne? Why can't it be North Melbourne or St Kilda or whoever? It doesn't really matter. But I think this is a poor decision. Third time in 4 years. There's a bit of same about it, and I really want to, look, I've been to probably 500 games of football. I love going to the footy each week. I like the different matchups, and I like the different, the variety of seeing, different teams at different venues when we play. And one thing we don't get to see very often now is Essendon playing Melbourne, who are a traditional rival. We've played them in 7 grand finals. We don't get to see them in Melbourne, which seems kind of insane. It's like the AFL are trying to create a tradition that no one asked for. Essendon versus Melbourne at the Adelaide Oval every year is not a tradition I want, and I'm assuming a lot of other people don't want that tradition either. I want it to be played in Melbourne. But nevertheless, there it is. Essendon is playing Melbourne in gather round in 2026 at the Adelaide Oval. The other thing I wanted to talk about, this was brought up on Gettable, the show that Cal Toomey does on the AFL website, is that there's been some talk that Essendon are after Carlton's pick 9. Now, pick 9, remember, probably becomes pick 12, or approximately that, when you take into account it will become pick 12 after all the NGA and father-son bids, maybe even pick 13 if Harry Dean is bid on before then. But there's been some talk that Essendon are after that pick. Now, there's been a lot of talk about Essendon trading up to get pick 1 or 2. I don't think that is going to happen. There's been a lot of talk about Essendon trading picks 21 and 27 to get a pick 15 or so from Brisbane or the Gold Coast, and that is a live possibility. But I think this Carlton one is kind of different, new news. This hasn't really been talked about much before, and I was just having a look at the draft points index and how it might work. Now, you've got to take into account there's 10% discounts and things like that. I'm just not calculating all that at the moment when you're matching father-sons. But this could actually work out in Carlton's favour and Essendon's favour if, for example, Essendon were to get Carlton's pick 9 and Carlton were to get Essendon's pick 21 and 27. So if you just have a look at how that might work, if just for argument's sake, if Harry Dean is picked at pick 2 by West Coast, and there is some suggestion that is a possibility that West Coast could bid on him at pick 2. Pick 2 is worth 2,481 points. Carlton would have to give up both picks 9 and 11, which equal 2,560 points, giving them a 79-point credit. And that 79-point credit then goes and gets them pick 50. All right, that's approximately. I'm not taking into account discounts. This is rough. You can add or subtract 1 or 2 picks once you take into account discounts and things like that. But basically, if West Coast bid on Dean at pick 2, Carlton would get Dean and they would get pick 50. So they would have Harry Dean and picks 47, 50, and 58. Let's say he was picked up at pick 6, Harry Dean, which is really pick 9, right after the NGAs. So if Harry Dean was picked up at pick 6, really pick 9 is worth 1,355 points. So in order to match that bid, they would have to give up both picks 12 and 14, which is worth 2,164 points. That would give them about 800 points credit, so they would get pick 19 back in return. So if he was bid on at pick 9, right, just to pick a random pick out there, just to give an example, they would get Dean and they would get picks 19, 47, and 58. So the next scenario, and it's the most interesting scenario and the one that involves Essendon, and it's probably the one that Cal was referring to when he was talking about the possibility of Essendon trading up to get Carlton's pick 9, is what happens if Essendon have their 2 picks and Carlton has there's still not been a bid on Harry Dean. So let's suppose Essendon pick, for argument's sake, Cumming and Sharp with our 2 picks. Could be a few different combinations of players, but just for argument's sake, it's those 2 players. And there's still not been a bid on Harry Dean, but there's going to be a bid on Harry Dean pretty soon because he's a quality player. So at that stage, Carlton would have picks 12 and 14, and we would have picks 24, 30 and 33. So if you have a look at what the points are worth, picks 24 and 30 are worth 1,075 points if you add them together, and pick 12, the Carlton have, is worth 1,140 points. So they're worth almost exactly the same. But when you take into account the discount, there's a 10% discount for matching father-sons. Pick 12, 1,140 points, equals almost exactly the same as what picks 24 and 30 does for Essendon. So that means the two clubs could engage in a pick swap. All right, Carlton give up pick 12. They've still got pick 14, but they give up pick 12. They get Essendon's pick 24 and 30. We get pick 12 from Carlton. And that means if a bid comes for Harry Dean, it comes soon, say it comes from Melbourne or whatever, Carlton could pretty much give up pick 14, which is almost exactly the points that they would need for it. They keep picks 24 and 30 in their back pocket. They might shuffle down the order a little bit with the way the points value thing works, but, that's just the way it is. And they would end up with Harry Dean and picks 24 and 30 just shuffled down maybe one or two picks, because the bid for Harry Dean would pretty much be exactly, when it comes, whoever bids on it, would pretty much be exactly worth what their pick 14 would be. So we would end up with their pick 12. They would get our picks 24 and 30, and they would still get Harry Dean as well. So this is a live chance of happening, because you've just got to basically hope that he is not bid on by the time we have our picks, and that would incentivise Carlton. So I think that was a scenario that could, benefit both teams. Carlton would still get picks 24 and 30, and they would have their pick 14, and pick 14 is the one that, would be swallowed up, if you like, with the Dean bid. If, say, Melbourne bid on it or whatever, Carlton would only need to find a handful of points in addition to pick 14 to match that bid if Melbourne bid on it. And so they're not really any worse off out of this, is basically what I'm trying to say. And Essendon would get pick 12. So there's a live chance of something like that playing out on draft night, and I think it would be very interesting if it did. So what do you guys think of that? Do you think that would be something that would benefit Essendon? Would you like Essendon to get Carlton's pick 12 and Carlton get our picks 24 and 30, and that would kind of assist them in their bid for matching Harry Dean? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think of Gather Round? Are you happy that Essendon is playing Melbourne again? I'm not, but maybe you like that. But look, I think it's a bit same old, and I think they could have been a little bit more creative with their fixturing. I'm going to leave it there. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Let me know if there's anything I've missed with all this draft point stuff. It is quite complicated when you're looking through it. I've been trying to do the calculations and work out some of the hypotheticals. But, look, if I've missed anything, let me know, and I'll try to correct it. I'm aware that there's points discounts and things like that. But basically, that's how it could play out on draft night, and I think it's very, very interesting. There's not long to go now until it happens. I'm going to leave it there. Have a great day, everybody. And as always, go Bombers.